Happy Friday to all of you. It is a Red Friday, another Red Friday live chat on Facebook and YouTube. So, hope you're all doing well, enjoying your Red Friday. Got some breaking news to get into, of course, some other reactions as well. A lot of things to get into here on this Red Friday live chat. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this Red Friday live stream. Like I said, a lot of things to get into here today. So, before we get started and get into all of that, just want to let you guys know, make sure you guys are following the page. If you guys are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Do both. That helps as well. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you are subscribed to the Chiefs Zone podcast, as we do those on Wednesdays and anytime there's breaking news and whatnot. Live streams do that as well. So if you want to watch, listen live on Facebook or YouTube, you have that option. So make sure you guys do that as well. Okay, I think we got some people in the chat now. If you guys are in here, hey, comment below. Let me know your thoughts on anything we're talking about here, because I definitely want to hear your guys' reaction to all of this. The whole news with Charles Omenihu came out earlier this afternoon, in which Omenihu is going to serve a 6-game suspension for a domestic violence dispute. There are not a lot of details about this, or at least that's being publicly out there. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more in the next day or two about this whole incident. I'm not really going to focus too much on that unless there's something serious that does need to be brought up. But and listen, I know there's something to get into with the NFL's inconsistency, because when you compare Alvin Kamara's suspension versus the suspension Omenihu got, yeah, there are some inconsistencies. And listen, the number of games a player gets suspended generally not consistent anyway to begin with. When they commit the same crime or same act here, depending on the case, not everyone gets suspended the same amount of games. A lot of these things are pretty different. So we'll leave that for another time. By the way, like I said, if you guys are joining and watching the Facebook page or on YouTube, comment below. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you guys would, please give this a like as well. Definitely helps out the live streams. Like I said, comment below. I will get your questions towards the end of the live stream. So if you guys do ask a question, if you guys do have a comment, anything you react to, be patient. I will get to those towards the end of the live stream. As far as Omenihu goes, so this is going to be a 6-game suspension. So he is going to be out for 6 games. Who steps up at this point? Specifically at the defensive end spot. And I think we've got to start talking about the defensive line as a whole, because it has not been a good offseason for the defensive line in general. Because when you look at this defensive line, it is thin at the moment. Very, very thin. Let me just quickly pull up the Chiefs depth chart, because there is a possibility the Chiefs have 2 very young guys starting at defensive end for week 1. And I'll tell you what, man, those 2 offensive tackles for the Detroit Lions, no joke there. Both first-round draft picks. Both have been in Detroit for quite some time. So it is definitely going to be a challenge. If the Chiefs can muster a couple of sacks from the edge, I would be pretty impressed with that week 1 game. So you look at the defensive line situation right now with, again, Frank Clark. He's moved on to Denver. Colin Saunders, not a defensive end, but still a big part of that defensive line. He's moved on to the Saints. You still have Carlos Dunlap. He's somewhere out there in the wings, still available to join a football team. Remember, he joined the Chiefs, I think, right before training camp last year. So maybe there's a possibility of a reunion there. Justin Houston, another former Chief, did not win a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, but so maybe there's a chance for him to come back and have a nice story there and try to get that championship that he's been wanting for quite some time. Maybe there's a possibility he comes back to Kansas City. A guy like Ngakoue is out there too, last I checked. So there's that possibility. Mike Dana is hurt at the moment. It shouldn't be anything long-term. Tershawn Wharton just got back. Obviously, the big name I've yet to mention, Chris Jones, is still holding out at the moment. By the way, I'll get into Chris Jones. There aren't any major updates I will get into one minor update that we got yesterday with Chris Jones, but nothing too major. For now, I just want to stick with Omenihu and specifically the defensive ends. What happens here moving forward? I think the Chiefs might be reaching out to a former friend, whether it's Carlos Dunlap, whether it's Justin Houston, or maybe another defensive end that might be available in free agency, because right now, your defensive ends, and again, Mike Dana's hurt at the moment, so keep that in mind. You have George Karlaftis, who played really well in the second half of his rookie season, so I think a lot of people are comfortable with him being a week one starter. But after that, who do you have behind him? I mean, Josh Kendo, this is a guy who was a 4th-round pick in 2021, not someone who's played a whole lot. Malik Herring, I know he's been getting a lot of hype in camp lately, but again, it's just training camp. You can't put too much stock in that kind of thing. Now we're going to start getting into rookies here. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, obviously Kansas City's 1st-round pick here, so this one would make the most sense. But again, generally speaking, a 1st-round pass rusher. Keep in mind, Karlaftis did not start a whole lot early on last year as a rookie, so it took him a little bit of time. Karlaftis and FAU were both selected near about the same time, just different years, 1 year apart. BJ Thompson, another defensive end who was drafted in this year's draft, a 5th-round pick. Is he someone that might get more playing time than expected? If he starts, I mean, this would be terrible news. I mean, this means we got a lot of even more injuries to come. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that. But, you know, BJ Thompson, who the Chiefs drafted from Stephen F. Austin, he's part of the depth chart right now. Right now, you're looking at a very thin defensive line. Again, Karlaftis, I like the guy. I think he's really good. I think there's a guy who could become an all-pro player in the future. But behind him right now, who do you have? Mike Dana might be your most experienced guy on this defensive line chart right now. And that's not really great news. No disrespect to Mike Dana. He's done some good things filling in as a role player at that defensive end position, but I don't think that's a guy the Chiefs really want to rely on as a week one starter. Preferably FAU, because that is your 1st-round selection. I mean, you obviously want your 1st-round selection to live up to those expectations, so it would make sense if they want FAU to be that week one starter, but is he going to be ready for that? That's a whole nother question here. There's a reason why the Chiefs brought in Omenihu and also drafted FAU. You know, maybe they wanted FAU to kind of be a backup for a little bit and then eventually grow into that starting role. He might need to grow a little faster. I heard on A10 they were making that reference that Dick Vermeil made to Larry Johnson. You got to put on those diapers, or take off those diapers rather. Put on those big boy pants and get ready to play. Look at the interior defensive line. Obviously, Chris Jones is your guy, but he's out of camp right now. Derek Nottie, he's been around for a very long time. Drafted in 2018, 3rd-round pick, so he's been around for quite some time. Tershawn Wharton's been here for a couple of years. He just got back into practicing with the Chiefs. Keandre Coburn, Danny Shelton, a veteran who the Chiefs brought in last year from the Giants, still with the team right now. You don't have a lot of names right now. And I'll tell you what, I said I would get into Chris Jones in a moment here. You look at Chris Jones right now, his value just went up. It went up. And listen, you don't want things to happen this way, but you know, if you're Chris Jones, today's a great day to be Chris Jones. It really is, because I think when you look at the fact that, hey, listen, I'm not saying that this season would be won and lost with Charles Omenihu, but you don't have a whole lot with your defensive line at the moment. A lot of young guys, and I know there were a lot of young guys with the secondary last year, and they did a lot better than I expected, for sure. The defensive line, though, I mean, they had some challenges last year. I think a lot of Chiefs fans mentioned the fact that, yes, they're getting a lot of sacks, but they're doing it on blitzes and not on a regular 4-man pass rush. I know Colin Saunders, when he was on the team last year, he was kind of going back and forth with Chiefs fans about that kind of thing. So there is that that whole possibility of, you know, Are they going to go out and get a Justin Houston or bring back Carlos Dunlap or maybe go after a guy like Ngakoue? You don't really have a whole lot. Or are you really just going to roll with who you have right now? Do you trust FAU and Karlaftis to be your week 1 starters against Detroit? Obviously the whole thing out there with Mahomes being undefeated in week 1, I think he's won AFC Offensive Player of the Week 2 or 3 times. He has an insane stat line in the month of September and week 1 in general. So, obviously we're not talking about Patrick Mahomes. We're talking about the defensive line, but you don't want to put a lot more pressure on Mahomes. You obviously want to get off to a good start as reigning Super Bowl champion. You don't want what happened in New England a few years ago when the Chiefs went in there on banner night. Remember that when Mark Wahlberg, who had a few to drink, trying to introduce the Patriots, trying to get the crowd fired up, and they were kind of bloating about the whole 28-3 comeback win they had in the Super Bowl, only for Kareem Hunt to just destroy them. Alex Smith also had a game, quite a big game. You don't want to drop that Super Bowl banner and drop a loss on the same night. You don't want that to happen. Just not a good look, especially in the social media era we are at now. And never a good thing to have happen. So this does impact the defensive line quite a lot. And is this going to turn into a situation where Brett Veach says, all right, Chris, you win. Katz Brothers, the agents for Chris Jones, you win. We're going to give you what you want. 31 million, whatever it is you're asking for. Here you go. This is it. Does that kind of thing happen? I don't know. Possibly. And listen, this whole Chris Jones thing is weird because you cannot have an opinion about this, good or bad, without some backlash here. I've been in the camp of, look, I would not be upset if Chris Jones was traded if he's demanding too much to the point where it's going to put your salary cap in a bind. And I talked about how if you sign Chris Jones, it's going to hurt the possibility of keeping Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Protecting the franchise quarterback holds precedence over a defensive lineman. I mean, I'm sorry, but it just does. Just go watch Super Bowl 55. Okay. You don't want that to happen again. Now, I said this, and I even said, look, Chris Jones deserves what he's asking for. It's just, you can't pay everybody. And credit to the Chiefs. They've been drafting well. So this is a great problem to have. It just sucks that this happens sometimes, because this could be the second year in a row that a fan favorite might move on. Now, with that said, whenever you make a comment like that, like for instance, I saw a tweet the other day. Someone sent me and said, "Oh, you must want a Greg Robinson defense all over again." Folks, we cannot keep everybody. We just can't. This is this is one of those situations where, I think as football fans, we're emotional. I get it. I'm not shaming Chiefs fans for feeling this way. I mean, Chiefs fans are proud of the fact that they own the Guinness World Record for loudest stadium in the world. Even before Patrick Mahomes got here. I know this is shocking to a lot of Chiefs haters, but the Chiefs broke the Guinness World Record for loudest stadium in the NFL way before Mahomes came here, even way before the Guinness World Record made it official. Chiefs fans and Arrowhead have been known to be the loudest in the NFL for quite some time in the 90s. And go ask John Elway in 1990 what happened at Arrowhead. He'll tell you. He was crying to the referees for the crowd to shut up. So, which by the way never worked, but you get the idea. The point I'm trying to make here is I think Chiefs fans are so emotional here because Chris Jones is a fan favorite. He is a very rare defensive tackle, and if you move on from him, who replace? Somebody asked me on Twitter, and it was a good question. Who replaces Chris Jones if you do trade him and try to make Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith a priority instead for the future with the money? It's a great question. The answer is no one's replacing Chris Jones, just like how nobody replaced Tyreek Hill in terms of his abilities and his duties last year. No one replaced Tyreek Hill in that category. You would have liked for it to be McCole Hardman, but he just did not live up to the hype even before the injuries. Kadarius Toney, he's a guy that could maybe replace him, but his availability was not consistent. That's something you got to have in order to be able to fill in for Tyreek Hill's shoes. And obviously we've already got a KT injury in day one of training camp. So the questions out there, who replaces Chris Jones? The answer is nobody. It's going to take multiple guys, and it's not going to be the same. But I will say this. Don't forget in 2018, which is the year I always refer to as Patrick Mahomes' redshirt rookie season, that was the year the Chiefs, not only did they co-lead the NFL in sacks, they were also 31st in total defense. They had the second worst defense in terms of total yards allowed. And with that same defense, that Bob Sutton defense, which, by the way, Bob Sutton got fired for that terrible year defensively, Patrick Mahomes was essentially an offsides call away, or maybe an overtime away, from taking a 31st ranked defense to the Super Bowl. He made it that far, came that close with a really terrible defense. So look, if Chris Jones does leave, is this the end of the world? No, it's not. And this is something I'm trying to preach to Chiefs fans. Like, look, yes, he is a fan favorite. I love the guy. I don't want to see Chris Jones wearing another team's uniform. I don't think any Chiefs fan does. No logical Chiefs fan wants this to happen. But for the sake of this football team long term, you might have to make some unpopular decisions. This would be an unpopular decision. No one wants Chris Jones to move on. Chris Jones is, listen, do you think, first of all, Matt Derrick on A10 made a very interesting point here. Who's going to trade for Chris Jones? Because there aren't a lot of teams, a lot of Super Bowl contending teams that have the salary cap for Chris Jones at the moment. And if this is the case here, who else? What are your suitors? The Texans? Okay, go get your 30, maybe even more $1 million with the Texans, but you're only going to win 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 at the most games. Is that what you want? Ultimately, that's the whole situation here. So if Chris Jones can take a page out of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's book, yeah, guess what? You can still enjoy a goddamn good life with $25 million. And so can Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith whenever it's their turn to get deals, which could be as early as next offseason, which, is 5-6 months away, right? So we have that to think about as well. But, man, right now it's just this defense is in a bind right now. But you know what? If you're Chris Jones and you are not budging, good on you, I guess, because today is a damn good day to be Chris Jones. It is. Not saying this to be funny. I'm not saying this to be rude or disrespectful, especially with the situation that went on with Charles Omenihu. But at the end of the day, this is what Chris Jones kind of needed, I guess, for his case to earn that money that he's been asking for. Let me say something, by the way. I've talked about this a lot with Chris Jones, maybe not even Chris Jones, great defensive player, right? Pro Football Focus just named him the best defensive player from last season, but he's not the best player on this team, nor is he the second best player. A lot of people would say Mahomes and Kelce, 1 and 2, are the best players on the team. So I think Chris Jones is kind of in a place where he's not even number 2, he's number 3 on this team. Here's another thing to think about, and I'm not trying to build this Chris Jones versus Frank Clark narrative, not at all, because the two guys love each other. Chris Jones was begging for the Chiefs to bring back Frank Clark. But Chris Jones, let's not forget something. When the Chiefs got Frank Clark right before the 2019 draft, I think it was, they immediately signed him to that big contract. Chris Jones that year wanted a deal, and he had to wait a little bit until he got his deal. Chris Jones, who had been on the team for a few years at that point, did not get the contract he wanted, but the Chiefs trade for someone else, and they immediately gave him the contract. So I think Chris Jones has always been in this circle where he feels like he's not feeling appreciated, or maybe he doesn't feel as valued to Brett Veach in this organization. I'm not saying they don't like Chris Jones, but I think Chris Jones comes from this place where, look, you paid Frank Clark before me, and I'm not even the top 2 guy on this team. I'm number 3 on this team. So he wants to feel like he's really valued, and in order to feel that way, he probably wants the money that he's asking for. So he might not budge. And with Omenihu's suspension and how thin you are, a lot of young defensive linemen on this football team. The oldest guy right now in camp is Derek Nottie, which, I don't think Derek Nottie's a terrible player. It's just what can anyone say about Derek Nottie in terms of his abilities on the field? Can't really say too much because he's been overshadowed by guys like Chris Jones, Frank Clark, even Karlaftis, even Carlos Dunlap, who didn't get a lot of sacks last year, but a veteran who came in wanting to finally get that ring and got his 100th career sack as a Chief. So those are some things to keep in mind. The Chiefs need Chris Jones right now more than ever. Which is, you don't want to say that because I listen, I've been on this camp where I would not be upset if Chris Jones got traded because maybe it means the Chiefs are trying to reserve some of that salary cap space for Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith because, like I said, protecting Patrick Mahomes, I think, is the number one priority with this franchise. The number one priority is to keep Mahomes long term. They've already done that, so scratch that from the list. The next important thing, keep him happy at all times. And I think if he has an offensive line, he will be happy. And I think he can win with just about any pass catcher out there. There's a lot for the Chiefs to think about right now with this situation with Charles Omenihu's suspension. And there's a possibility the Chiefs start two very young guys at the defensive end spots. George Karlaftis, who was your first-round draft pick last year, and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who is your first-round draft pick this year. So this is going to be a very interesting deal here. One other thing I want to get into before we move on. Actually, two quick things. I did mention a Chris Jones note. So I apologize. I don't remember the name of the gal from ESPN. So if one of you guys in the comments can help me, because I don't want to look it up right now, and I don't want to stall or anything. Her Diane something. She was on the Pat McAfee show, and they were asking about Chris Jones, and she said that she had talked to the Chiefs this morning, meaning yesterday morning. I'm quoting, I'm paraphrasing what she was saying, but she essentially said that she spoke to someone from the Chiefs and that they were still, once again, optimistic that the Chiefs are going to get a deal done with Chris Jones at some point. She also mentioned that the number Chris Jones is asking is a very big number. Also mentioned, he doesn't have to be at camp at the moment. But you got to get, I'm sure he's in shape, but he's in football shape. You got to be around the coaching staff and make sure, they like what they're seeing out of you before your week 1 game against the Lions. So I think a lot of people are accepting the fact that this is someone who could miss a couple of preseason games, maybe all 3 preseason games. But Diane Ruzeni, thank you. I hope I said her name correctly. But the point I'm trying to get here is this is not the first time we've been told that the Chiefs are optimistic. Jeremy Fowler, Jeff Darlington, both ESPN reporters, and I think James Palmer from NFL Network, they have all reported in the offseason before training camp that the Chiefs are optimistic that they will get Chris Jones extended. They will sign him to a new deal before training camp. So when I hear Diane on Pat McAfee show say that, the Chiefs are optimistic, to me, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means anymore. We've heard that all summer long, and look what happened. Chris Jones is not at camp. He's holding out still. The Chiefs are surprised by it. Andy Reid even admitted he is surprised by it. Diane mentioned in her segment with Pat McAfee that she was told that the Chiefs were surprised over Chris Jones' absence in training camp. So there is some of that to think about as well with the whole Chris Jones deal. So just wanted to get that out there. Like I said, it's nothing major. It's not a major update. Nonetheless, it is an update of some sort. We're being told again that the Chiefs are optimistic, but we've also heard that all summer long. So you make what you guys want out of that. One thing I do want to mention here, the NFL top 100 list. Okay. Oh boy. You guys want to hear a conspiracy theory? I don't know how legit this list is. I really don't. So unless I've missed it or maybe it's happened while I'm talking, the NFL has revealed numbers 100 through 11. First of all, let me just tell you the NFL top 100 list. They've been doing this for a few years now. This is strictly voted on by the players. No media, no fans. It's not a Pro Bowl vote. It's not a popularity contest. Players are polled on what to on the players that they want to rank I don't know how the ranking goes. Do they ask, for instance, do they ask Patrick Mahomes to rank their top 100 guys, or do they just ask for the top 10, 20? I don't know how the voting system works. I really don't. Sorry, I'm just looking at a text right now. I thought there was maybe an update of some sort. I'm not sure how this list works. Okay, hear me out now. Patrick Mahomes in the 2019 top 100 list, which reflects the 2018 season. That was the year Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdown passes and 5,000 yards. Let me quickly pull that up. Patrick Mahomes was number 4 on that list. Really? The guy who threw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards is number 4 on that list? That doesn't add up here. Let me pull up that list and tell you guys who was. Okay, so number 1 was Aaron Donald. Okay. Number 2 was Drew Brees. Patrick Mahomes beat out Drew Brees to win the MVP award. Now, again, the same people are not voting for this. These are supposedly players voting. Khalil Mack of the Bears at the time was number 3. So Aaron Donald, Drew Brees, and Khalil Mack, according to football players. Again, keep in mind, these are players who don't like it when fans have opinions because fans have never played the sport, especially at the professional level. Meanwhile, these professional athletes, they're experts, right? They know more than we do. And they're the ones voting on this, yet they voted Aaron Donald, Drew Brees, and Khalil Mack over Patrick Mahomes that year. That doesn't add up. I'm not a mathematician. Math has never been my strong suit, folks. But I'm telling you, that does not add up. Now let's go a year later. The 2020 top 100 NFL players. This reflects the 2019 season. That was the season the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Again, I don't know when these votes were submitted, so there's that to consider. I know Patrick Mahomes missed a couple of games that year due to a knee injury, but he was playing really lights out before that injury and played at a high level when he came back too. But Lamar Jackson was number 1. Okay, I can understand Lamar Jackson being number 1. He won the MVP that year. He won it unanimously. Fine. Number 2 was Russell Wilson of the Seahawks at the time. Now at the Broncos, of course. Number 3 was Aaron Donald. So once again, Aaron Donald ahead of Patrick Mahomes. So you mean to tell me the quarterback that was playing very well, missed a couple of games due to a knee injury, played just as well when he came back, that guy, it was not better than Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson? Really? NFL players voted on this, folks. This isn't the media. These aren't fans. This is not a Pro Bowl vote. This is a list voted on by the players. Let's go to today now. Again, we're still waiting on the top 100 list, or excuse me, the top 10 list. No Chief has been ranked yet. So from numbers 100 through 11, no Chief has been ranked. So this means one thing, that either Mahomes, Kelsey, Jones, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Joe Tooney are all in the top 10, or we've got some players that seriously got shit on this list. Realistically, I'm telling you right now, an offensive lineman is not going to be a top 10 player. Okay, that's just not going to be the case. So Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Joe Tooney are not even on the top 100 list, supposedly. Again, this is voted on by players. Bolton also. L'Jarius Sneed, not on this list. By the way, NFL executives and coaches were polled recently on the top 10 players at all these positions. Joe Tooney was number 2, but somehow is not on this list. Creed Humphrey was also in the top 10 on this list. I think he was 5, 6, or 7. Forgive me, I don't have that number in front of me, or that list in front of me. So the NFL executives who consider Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey as top 10 interior offensive linemen are not even on the top 100 NFL players list for this year. Okay. Here's my conspiracy theory. Either NFL players are dumb or they're not taking this seriously, or I don't think this list is legit. I think NFL Network intentionally is reordering certain players to kind of make this look a little weird and funny. I truly believe that. I really do. In fact, I believe this with Pro Bowl voting. By the way, go ahead, get those rigged votes conspiracy theories in. Get them now. No, I seriously believe that. I seriously believe that the NFL Network is intentionally reordering some of the names on the list to draw a reaction. Do you really think the year Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, was he really the number 4 player that year? Really? You guys believe that? Does any NFL player believe that? Again, these are players voting on this, and players don't like fans having opinions, especially over something negative. They believe that their opinion holds far more weight than anyone else. So if this list is legit, I'm sorry, but either the NFL players are not taking this vote seriously, or they're just dumb, or they just don't pay attention to what's really happening across the NFL. Because there's no realistic, logical explanation that Patrick Mahomes was the 4th best player the year he threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. Same thing for the following year when he was number 4 once again. By the way, J.J. Watt, there was a season where J.J. Watt only played 2 or 3 games, and he was ranked in the top 100 list for that year. He even responded on Twitter. He goes, I didn't even play. I hardly played, and I got voted somehow. So there's some weird fuckery going on with this whole list here. There's some bullshit going on. I'm not buying this list here. Okay. Again, conspiracy theory. So get the tinfoil hats, get all of that. But this doesn't add up here, folks. It's really not. And if you think I'm wrong, prove it. Prove to me that Patrick Mahomes was not the number 1 player in 2018. 2019, fine. Okay, Lamar Jackson. But at number 4, come on. And again, I don't know when players are asked to submit their votes. A lot of times, so the AP, when they vote on MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all those things, they vote immediately after the regular season. Because obviously, if you wait for the playoffs, it's so easy to just give it to whoever wins the Super Bowl MVP, or give Coach of the Year to the coach of the winning team. So those kinds of things their votes get submitted immediately after the regular season. I'm a former writer for Pro Football Writers of America, or a former member, I should say, of Pro Football Writers of America. I still remember voting for them and doing it immediately after the regular season before the playoffs started. So again, this is something doesn't add up here. So you really mean to tell me Creed Humphrey, who a lot of people consider as the number 1 center, and if he's not number 1, he's right behind Jason Kelce, he's not on this top 100 list? Joe Thuney, who was just tabbed as the number 2 interior offensive lineman by executives in an ESPN survey, he's not at all on the top 100 list? Doesn't add up here, folks. And no one's calling NFL Network out on this. They're really not. So you be the judge here. Do you really think this is a legit list? Do you think NFL Network is intentionally reordering things? Or do you really think that players just are not aware as to who really is the best or not? Because again, the players are voting on this. Not the media, not the fans, no one else. The players. I think it's interesting to me. All right, I'm going to read some of your comments and get out of here for the day, or for the night, I should say. Chris says, did the Chiefs know this is going to happen before they signed Charles Omenihu? Yes, I mean, obviously. Listen, teams know everything. And when I say everything, they know that. So if someone was arrested, they know this. So they know a suspension of some sort was going to happen. Let me give you guys an example here. Ben Heaney, who was a great linebacker for the Kansas Jayhawks, had a really good career there. I think he was 2nd in solo tackles his senior year. Very good linebacker. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out for him in the NFL. He got into some trouble at a local nightclub in Lawrence, which is where KU is. A lot of people in the media did not know about it, and it was the KU their PR staff that actually sent out a press release saying, hey, we're aware of what happened. And even the media was like, whoa, wait, what is this? We were not aware of this. And they kind of regret sending that from people whom I know from within, because they would have loved to keep that hidden. But let me just say this. And Ben Haney even admitted in an interview he did locally here leading up to the NFL draft, he said, hey, look, yeah, I got into some trouble and teams knew about it. They were asking me about it. If you guys remember Michael Sam, the former Missouri Tiger who came out as a gay man right before the NFL draft, there were some reports that came out that teams already knew about him. So teams know a lot of things. They don't want to say it publicly, obviously. They would love for this stuff to stay hidden as much as possible. If you guys remember when the whole Britt Reed thing happened the week of the Super Bowl, Andy Reid did his press conference not saying a single word about it. Then it got out after his press conference what happened the night before. So whenever there are bad things like this that happen, teams try to keep quiet about this. Yeah, when Charles Omenihu was signed, this was not something a lot of people even talked about. It was hardly even mentioned that he was arrested in January. And for anyone that did discuss it, it was kind of just forgotten about when they moved on. Blake says, do you remember the original suspension for Ray Rice or Deshaun Watson? Well, for Deshaun Watson, he missed 11, 12 games last year. I don't have that off the top of my head. Ray Rice, I don't think Ray Rice was ever suspended. Nobody was willing to sign Ray Rice when the footage of that thing came out, Blake. So I don't believe the NFL came out with a suspension. They just kind of like right now with Henry Ruggs. I don't think the NFL ever gave like I don't think the NFL formally announced a suspension for Henry Ruggs. It's just, hey, look, he's got that to deal with. You guys all know what happened. Had some drinks, drove 150 some miles an hour, and unfortunately took the life of a young woman. No team has any interest in Henry Ruggs. So, yeah. Joe says money over a ring. I don't get it. STFU and play. Okay. All right. I mean, listen, everyone's got their opinions on this. Natalie says, I don't understand the hate for Chris Jones. If you have achieved the highest accolades at your current job and were offered way more money at a competitor, 9 out of 10 people are taking it. Yeah, you're right. Listen, Natalie, I don't disagree with anything you said. I've said all along, Chris Jones does deserve what he's asking for. Is he going to get that here? No. Unless the Chiefs are okay with losing Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith after next year. Because you do end up in a salary cap bind with Chris Jones in the amount of money. Listen, the Chiefs at one point, their defensive line was more than a fourth of their salary cap with Frank Clark and Chris Jones and the amount of money they were making. So, listen, they've already restructured Mahomes' contract a couple of times. They've already redone Joe Tooney's deal, Travis Kelce's deal. I think everyone else has kind of done their part. It's up to Chris Jones at this point. Do you want that money? If not, play out your final year with the Chiefs. Hopefully it ends in a Super Bowl ring, and then I guess the loss would be a little easier to take at that point. Or if you want that money and contract now, go to the Texans. Yeah. Accept the fact that you could be traded there. Really, I mean, I'm not saying that as an insult or to be funny. It's just there aren't a lot of teams right now willing, Super Bowl contenders that have the money, the funds for Chris Jones right now. They just don't. Mikhail, I hope I said that correctly. The Chiefs knew he was going to get suspended when they got him. Yeah, I mean, they had to have known that. Did they know it was going to be 6 games? Probably not. Yeah, Joshua, I hear you. This is why Mahomes isn't the highest paid QB. He wants everyone else to get paid. Yeah, he talked about that in that Sports Illustrated interview. And Travis Kelce said something similar in his interview with Vanity Fair too. He pointed out Tyreek Hill by name and said, hey, look, my former teammate got 2-3 times more than what I'm getting, but I just want a championship. So, and listen, a guy like Travis Kelce, his podcast is doing so great right now that he's doing with his brother Jason. Saturday Night Live, I mean, he killed it. That got him an agency deal in Hollywood. He has a Bud Light commercial. He got invited to every single party that took place on this planet. Essentially, it feels like. So, he's not struggling. He's not in a place where he's begging for a big deal, kind of like Tom Brady. He had a lot of endorsement deals. Mahomes, a bunch of endorsement deals. So they're able to take team-friendly deals. I don't know what endorsements Chris Jones has right now. Obviously, not as much as Mahomes or Kelsey. So, yeah, I can understand him in his position. It's just, the Chiefs just might not. You can't keep everybody. You just can't. Again, it's a great problem to have because you've been drafting so well for so long. Yeah, I don't know if there was a charge. Again, there are very, very few details about what happened here, Joshua. Not a lot of details here. Yeah, Scott, you asked this a couple of weeks ago, and I turned that question down. So I apologize. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it could be similar to the Jared Allen deal or the Tyreek Hill deal. So it could be one of those two. All right, I'm going to read a few more. That was also the year where nobody had film on Mahomes. Yeah. His redshirt year in 2018. Yeah, that's true. And listen, you can look at college film, but what are you going to get? College. Okay. Well, he's obviously not going to play the exact same way in the NFL. He's got Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Matt Nagy, before he moved on, all who had coached him up prior to that. Mahomes come out of nowhere and nobody could stop him. Dude had 50 touchdowns. Yeah, that was, I mean, one of the more crazier first seasons you'll see. Yeah, sure. He played that week 17 game against Denver. So technically that was his first year, but you get the idea. People are mad if he goes to a division rival like they're close to winning the division or making the playoffs. You're referring to Frank Clark, I think. Only reason he was because trying to get his son and his baby mama said he hit her. Okay, I don't know the details here. I really don't. This suspension makes Chris Jones even more important, even though they need him on the field. Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier, Ben. Today is a great day for Chris Jones. His value went up, but probably skyrocketed too. Ben asks another comment. Asks this question here: does the pass rush not run off what Chris Jones does on the interior? I mean, it does it to an extent because you have interior offensive linemen that are trying to double team him. So your tackles do end up having a lot of one-on-one situations right there, a lot of one-on-one battles. That's what a lot of big interior defensive linemen do. It does help those defensive ends quite a lot. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get how they're not in the top 100. That's horseshit. No other way about it. 4 former Chiefs in the top 20 available free agents. They must be doing something right. Yeah. Let's see. By the way, I apologize. Some of you guys are saying kind of generic things like who is replacing him, and I, at the time you guys wrote that, I don't know who him is. So hopefully I was able to answer your question even before coming across that. Let's see. Okay, so this is the part where you guys are responding to what I'm saying about the list here. Yeah, I think so, Joe. I think the Pro Bowl is the same way. I would not even be surprised if the All-Pro was similarly done. Yeah, I've been saying it for years. I think these things are done to get reactions. They intentionally mix up the orders to make that happen. I mean, look at us right now. We're talking about it and complaining about it essentially, right? So credit to them. Yeah, I agree. I say he's one. And if he's not, I mean, like if this was Madden ratings, Jason Kelsey might be a 95 and Creed's like a 94.5, right? Like those two are 1A, 1B in terms of centers in the NFL right now. Yeah, this is the thing, Hunter. I see. This is 1,000% like the Cliff Notes version of the whole Chris Jones situation. He is worth it, but you can't pay everybody. Guess what? The Las Vegas Raiders right now, they could probably afford him because they don't have the players that the Chiefs have. There are a lot of terrible teams that can afford him. Do you think we can get a number one for Chris Jones? Oh, I mean, if you're not getting a number one, you better be getting 2 2s and 2 3s, which I'd be fine with because the Chiefs have done a great job finding players outside of the first round, like Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Watson. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't get a number one, you better be getting a lot of 2s and 3s, multiple 2s and 3s, which I don't know if any team has that at the moment. I bet he sees all that money Tyreek is getting and he's getting jealous. Yeah, maybe they've been talking a lot of shit too. Yep, Justin Houston, he's still out there. And listen, what kind of a story would this be? He goes out there, returns to Kansas City, didn't get a chance to be part of those 2 Super Bowl teams, so he comes back and takes part in hopefully what's going to be their 3rd Super Bowl with this core group. And it would be a great story for him. He can finally ride off into the sunset if he feels like it is his time to go with a Super Bowl ring under his belt. I mean, I don't think so, Roger. No, I don't think they should be paying him that much because you got to keep Creed Humphrey. You got to keep Trey Smith. If you pay Chris Jones, great. But then you got to think about the rest of your team too. The price that Chris Jones is asking for could be the price of both Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. So, and listen, Nick Bolton's another player too that is eligible for a new deal next year. Can the Chiefs also keep him? You might only be able to keep 2 out of the 4. This is what happened in New England for a long time. They had Brady. They signed some good offensive linemen long term. Kept a couple of other players here. Look at their quarterbacks. They had Ty Law. He moved on. They had Stephon Gilmore, former Defensive Player of the Year. He moved on. I think J.C. Jackson also won Defensive Player of the Year. So the Patriots have done such a great job with scouting and bringing players in. It's just, yeah. Let me tell you guys this. Look at some of the players that have moved on in Kansas City for various reasons. Alex Smith moved on. Kareem Hunt moved on. Marcus Peters gone. Tyrann Mathieu, Tyreek Hill. I know I'm forgetting someone else on this list here. I mean, there have been a lot of very good players, okay, who have moved on. And the Chiefs have done. The Chiefs last year lost a very dynamic wide receiver in Tyreek Hill, and they lost. And I don't think that was really his best year, his last year with the Chiefs. But Tyrann Mathieu, a really dominant safety, moved on to the Saints. Both Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu, in their first years outside of Kansas City, were all-pro guys. Guess what? The Chiefs still won a Super Bowl without him. And that's not to say those guys have zero value. They're great players, of course, but if the Chiefs do lose Chris Jones, let's not act like it's the end of the world. Remember what happened last March when Tyreek Hill got traded? The entire world thought the Chiefs were done for. Look what, like, the narrative was, oh my God, they don't have Tyreek Hill. How the hell are they gonna have an offense? And then it gradually turned into, holy shit, this team's actually doing well without Tyreek Hill. The 2 biggest storylines in the week of Super Bowl 57 was Donna Kelsey and holy shit, how are the Chiefs here without Tyreek Hill? Those were your 2 biggest storylines the week of Super Bowl 57. Think about that. Okay, a couple more here. I agree. Protecting Mahomes long-term is paramount. Yeah. I mean, that's otherwise, why else are you paying him? You pay him and then you're not going to give him the offensive line he needs? Brady succeeded because he had a great offensive line, both in New England and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, he was only there for a short time, but still, you had that. That's the reason why Brady succeeded and got 7 rings, 6 with New England. Peyton Manning had a great offensive line in Indianapolis and in Denver. He was in Denver longer than Brady was in Tampa Bay, but still succeeded because he had that great offensive line. Drew Brees was great for so many years because he just had a great offensive line for so long there. You look at any quarterback, and even those that never won a championship, players that have done so well for so many years, quarterbacks, that is, it's because they've got a great offensive line. Aaron Rodgers, same thing. He has a Super Bowl win. It's been a very long time. Phillip Rivers, he never succeeded very well in the playoffs, but he put up big numbers in the regular season because he had a great offensive line for so many years. Tony Romo, same thing with him. You get the idea at this point, right? Like all those quarterbacks I mentioned, they never played with a terrible offensive line. And listen, there are a lot of quarterbacks that didn't play very well. They could have benefited from having a great offensive line. Look at Trent Green. Do you think Trent Green would have put up the number? He was second in passing yards 3 years in a row because he had a great offensive line. Trent Green did not have Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, and Travis Kelce. Now, okay, he did have a Travis Kelce sort of, right? He had Tony Gonzalez. But his wide receivers, and no disrespect, because Eddie Kennison and Sammy Parker, I thought were good, solid players, but they were not by any means the same as Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. Did I say Sammy Watkins twice? I meant Sammy Parker. Trent Green was able to put up those big numbers because he had a great offensive line for so many years in Kansas City. Jamal Charles, Ben. Yeah, I like I said, I'm sure there are a couple other players I forgot. Another fan favorite who moved on, and the Chiefs were just fine without him. Here's another one I forgot. Derek Johnson, Tamba Hali. By the way, there are a lot of great defensive players who the Chiefs moved on from, and they still succeeded just fine. Eric Berry. Again, like I said, the Chiefs have drafted so many great guys over the years, okay? And unfortunately, not all those guys won Super Bowls here in Kansas City. Like Eric Berry, man, shit. Like the things that he has gone through would have been so great if he won a Super Bowl. So I was pretty sad, like a lot of fans when he was let go. But did that impact the Chiefs long term? No, just didn't. And again, it's not an insult to Eric Berry. It's just this is a business. This really is. And I'm not trying to come off like Vince McMahon, who doesn't give a shit and just says, okay, F you, you're gone. No, it's just, at the end of the day, there are tough decisions. Listen, I'm a Vegas Golden Knights fan. Okay. This team won their championship in their 6th year, but they did make some very difficult decisions. They signed Ryan Schmidt to a 5-year deal. After that first year, they traded him. They also had Marc-Andre Fleury, who's had a phenomenal career as a goalie. They moved on from him, and they were viewed as villains for doing that. Well, guess what? They just won a championship without some of those guys I was mentioning. Teams make very difficult decisions. They're fan favorite. This is part of the reason why I don't like to wear jerseys or purchase jerseys, I should say, unless it's Patrick Mahomes. The only jerseys I buy anymore are Mahomes jerseys, specifically with those Super Bowl patches on them. Only if the Chiefs win them, that is. But again, difficult decisions are going to be made. I'm willing to say in 2 years, the Chiefs might make even more difficult decisions with certain guys. But when you keep drafting so well, it's not going to hurt you too much in the long run. Now, that's a good point, Elaine. No, he didn't. I mean, he had a great career. It's just, he could never win the big one. Yeah, Stuart, that's a good point. Justin Houston, another fan favorite who moved on, and the Chiefs still just did just fine without him. Look, at the end of the day, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and an offensive line, you're going to be just fine for many years to come. Even when Travis Kelce moves on, even when Andy Reid retires. I know people are talking about Reid's retirement could be soon. It's just, I think Mahomes will be just fine as long as Brett Veach is going to ensure that he has a good pass protection for many. If you do that, you're going to maximize Patrick Mahomes' potential his entire time in Kansas City, and that increases your chance of maybe matching or even surpassing Brady's Super Bowl win total. Otherwise, why are you signing him to a 10-year deal, right? Because if you sign him to a 10-year deal, I'm sure Brett Veach and the entire front office said, okay, we got our quarterback. We have him long term. Now we got to make sure he has the tools he needs to succeed. That's an offensive line. Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying, go play with scrubs at wide receivers. You need some notable names there, but Mahomes, I think, can win with just about anybody. Look at his NFL debut. the guy balled out with Albert Wilson. How many NFL fans can tell you who Albert Wilson is? I think it was 10 catches, 150 yards or something like that. So, you got to make sure you're taking care of your quarterback. And I trust that Brett Veach will do that for Mahomes' tenure in Kansas City. Okay. I am done. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you guys go enjoy your Friday night. I'm going to go do the same thing. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this Red Friday live chat. Every Friday, you guys bring it. I appreciate it. I anticipate this will only grow as we get closer and closer to kickoff and into the regular season. So please keep this up. Again, keep in mind, we do have the Chiefs Zone podcast that is live streamed Wednesday evening, different times, different Wednesdays. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you want to download your podcast. Please make sure you're downloading the Chiefs Zone. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the Chiefs Zone YouTube channel. I have that going. That is fairly new. So if you guys can subscribe to that, that would be greatly appreciated as well. And before you guys get out of here, give this video a thumbs up or a heart emoji or any one of those like reactionary emojis. That helps out a lot as well. Again, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps out a lot because that is something I'm trying to ramp up since I started that recently. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I'm gonna let you guys go. Enjoy your Friday night. Peace out. Take care. Happy Red Friday.